When my family tried these, they were trying to steal these for their hamburgers. And I was like, hell no. You get your own damn buns. These are mine. I finally get to enjoy them. Say goodbye to your sad little hamburger on a plain plate with no bun. Today we are going to make soft, squishy, legitimately awesome gluten-free hamburger buns. They're not hard to make. I use an easy technique to shape them that doesn't require much effort. Anyone can do this. I'm gonna show you exactly how, so let's get to it. Okay, we're gonna start with the yeast and water mixture. So I have 1.5 cups of water at a warmish temperature between like 105 and 110. Going to put a teaspoon of sugar in here. It just helps activate the yeast. And then I just buy my yeast in bulk. This is active dry yeast and I store it in jars in my fridge. If you buy your yeast in bulk, I recommend getting this handy little thing. You can get it off Amazon, I'll link to it below. But it's just the exact measurement of a package of yeast. So it's 2 1/4 teaspoons. So that way you don't have to measure that out. Let this sit for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna give it a quick stir and then just set it aside to sit. It'll eventually get foamy while we mix together our dry ingredients. So for the flour, we need 3 1/4 cup of flour. It's kind of a lot of flour, so make sure you use a good flour. I use cup for cup gluten-free flour. That's one, honestly, I feel like works the best in this recipe. If you go to my website and read through the comments, you can read through what other people have used too. I feel like people have had a lot of success with King Arthur. And then 1/3 cup of sugar, which might seem like a lot, but I feel like the sugar, it adds moisture to the recipe and gives like this little sweet taste to it. So I highly recommend using the full 1/3 cup. Here's a little secret ingredient. I use potato starch. So instead of just adding more flour to give the dough structure and to help shape it, I take out some of that flour and then add something softer, which absorbs the moisture, which is potato starch. So we need 1/2 cup of that. And then 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I like adding the baking powder with the yeast because when it bakes, it just bakes up a little more airier too. And then 1 teaspoon of salt. Ooh, we got one important thing that we didn't add. Psyllium husk powder. This is key when you have to shape gluten-free bread dough because it makes it malleable and easy to shape. It absorbs the moisture without having, once again, to add more gluten-free flour, which would just dry it out. You need 2 tablespoons. And then here's the weird thing. There's like 2 brands that I have found. This is one of them, and then there's another one. I linked to it in the recipe post that doesn't turn your bread purple when you bake. If you use a darker psyllium, for some reason, it makes the baked goods purplish after it bakes. It doesn't affect how it tastes, it's just a little unsettling looking. Okay, we'll just mix that to combine. So your yeast mixture will be foamy at this point, and we're gonna just add the rest of the liquid ingredients to it. You don't have to stir them, I just do it so I can transport it all in there in one take. So it's 1/4 cup of melted butter that's melted and cooled. And then 2 eggs, room temp eggs. I can never remember to set my eggs out at room temp, so honestly what I do is I will just put them in the shell in a bowl of hot water and let them sit like that for 5 minutes and then they're room temp. Okay, so we're going to mix this together for about a minute to let it come together. And then after that, increase the speed to about medium and beat it for 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes. Just let it beat for 5 to 6 minutes. This just gives time for the moisture to absorb in the GF starches. It softens the bread. You don't have to worry about overbeating it because there's no gluten, so you can't make it tough. So just beat it for about 5 minutes. Okay, we're ready to shape our buns. And this is a little unconventional method, but here we go. So 1/3 measuring cup I'm going to grease it with just some nonstick spray. This is what I find gives the best size of the hamburger buns. Then scoop the dough out so it's kind of even with the cup. Now, if you want to get very precise about this, you need about 3.5 ounces per bun. So you could use a food scale and measure it so it's 3.5 ounces. Then we're just going to roll it into a smooth ball. So to do this, I kind of flatten it out, pinch it in the bottom, and then just roll it. The key is if you have any cracks at all, gluten-free bread's not as forgiving, so when it rises, those cracks expand instead of like just melding together. So if I see any cracks, I kind of pinch them together and smooth them out. Honestly, if you don't care, it's just a looks thing. So if you don't need perfect bread buns, then skip that. But for the purposes of filming a YouTube video, we need perfect looking bread buns. So see, it should be a smooth ball. And then I just have a piece of parchment on a baking pan that's also sprayed and set it on there. I forgot to mention this before. So before I begin the recipe, I will set my oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it beeps and it's 200 degrees, then I turn off the oven and start making the dough. That way, when we're going to move these to the oven to rise for 10 minutes, it's warmer than room temperature. So then it'll settle back down to about like 100 degrees. So do that first. Now, after all our dough is shaped, then we're just gonna flatten them down slightly so they look more like hamburger buns and not rolls. So just take your hands and kind of flatten them. I would say the best is like 3/4 of an inch. Once they're flattened, we're just gonna take a piece of plastic wrap, going to grease it, and then just lay it over the top, just so they don't dry out while they're rising. This goes into the slightly warmed oven for 10 minutes. Take them out after 10 minutes, put them at room temperature while your oven preheats to 375 for about 20 to 30 minutes. Our buns are risen, and now we're gonna brush it with the egg wash. So this is just an egg beaten together with a little bit of water. And the reason why we do this, well, two things. It makes the buns a little bit shinier, and then also it helps stick on the toppings. So just brush it on and then sprinkle the toppings over it. You could do poppy seeds, you could do sesame seeds, you could do nothing, or I'm gonna try a little flaky sea salt today. So just like all other gluten-free breads, I do recommend that you eat them and enjoy them the day that they're made. If you're making these for a party or something else, then what I usually do is I just make them ahead of time, cool them completely, and then wrap them up each in plastic wrap, put in a gallon Ziploc bag, and freeze them. And then you could just pull them out as needed. So like if your gluten-full family is all having hamburger buns, you can pull out one of these for yourself and just warm it up to slightly above room temperature to make it nice and soft. Once people try these buns, they want to like make their whole life into versions of this. So they ask like, can I use this recipe for yada, yada, yada? Yes, I have a recipe for hot dog buns that you could turn this into. I have a similar recipe for gluten-free rolls. There's other ways that you can use this dough, and because it's so good, you're going to want to. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.